Hi. Welcome to Did You Know? The channel with interesting facts about everything. Today we're going to talk about my $1 bill friend, George Washington. Did you know these facts about George Washington? George Washington was not only the first president of the United States but also operated one of the largest whiskey distilleries in the country during his time. Located at Mount Vernon, his distillery produced whiskey and other spirits. I'm starting to like this guy. Despite his iconic image on the $1 bill, George Washington suffered from dental problems throughout his life. By the time he became president, he had only one remaining natural tooth. He wore multiple sets of dentures made from materials like ivory, gold, and human teeth, often from slaves. George Washington remains the only U.S. president to have been unanimously elected by the Electoral College. Both in 1789 and 1792, he received all electoral votes cast. Washington was an animal lover and a skilled equestrian. He was known for his affection for horses and hounds and was considered an excellent horseman. He even named some of his favorite horses after historical figures like Nelson and Blueskin. Contrary to the popular belief that George Washington was exceptionally tall, he was actually average in height for his time, standing around 6 feet, 183 centimeters tall. However, he was well proportioned and carried himself with dignity, which may have contributed to the perception of his height. Just like me! During his presidency, George Washington refused to accept a salary and instead requested only reimbursement for his expenses. He felt it was his duty to serve his country without seeking personal financial gain. Washington was instrumental in establishing America's first spy network during the Revolutionary War. Known as the Culper Spy Ring, it provided valuable intelligence to the Continental Army and played a significant role in the outcome of the war. George Washington was a prominent Freemason and held various leadership positions within the organization. He was initiated into the fraternity in 1752 and remained actively involved throughout his life. George Washington took the oath of office as the first president of the United States on April 30, 1789, using a Bible borrowed from the St. John's Lodge No. 1, Ancient York Masons in New York City. This Bible is still used in inaugurations today and is considered a symbol of the continuity of the American presidency. George Washington delivered his second inaugural address on March 4, 1793, in Philadelphia. It was the shortest inaugural address in American history, consisting of just 135 words, reflecting his belief in brevity and simplicity in public speaking. Washington's farewell address, delivered in 1796, is considered one of the most important speeches in American history. In it, he warned against the dangers of political factionalism, foreign alliances, and sectionalism, offering advice that remains relevant today. During the Revolutionary War, George Washington became an early advocate for smallpox inoculation, a risky but effective procedure to prevent the spread of the disease. He ordered the inoculation of Continental Army troops, which helped reduce the incidence of smallpox and saved many lives. While George Washington was born on February 22, 1732, according to the Julian calendar in use at the time, his birthday is celebrated on February 22 under the modern Gregorian calendar. However, before 1971, the official federal holiday honoring Washington was celebrated on his actual birth date. George Washington's military career began at the young age of 21 when he was appointed as a major in the Virginia militia. He gained valuable military experience during the French and Indian War, where he served with distinction and eventually rose to the rank of colonel. During the harsh winter of 1777 to 1778, George Washington and his Continental Army endured the infamous winter encampment at Valley Forge, Pennsylvania. Despite the severe conditions, Washington's leadership helped to keep the army together and prepared them for future campaigns. As a military leader, George Washington introduced several innovations, including the use of military intelligence, the establishment of a corps of engineers, and the adoption of a system of military badges to recognize merit and bravery among his soldiers. In 1759, George Washington married Martha Dandridge Custis, a wealthy widow with 2 children. Their marriage was a devoted and loving partnership, and Martha played a significant role in supporting Washington's public and private life. While George Washington was privately religious and often referenced a divine power in his writings and speeches, he was relatively private about his specific religious beliefs. He was tolerant of diverse religious views and believed in the importance of religious freedom. Despite his marriage to Martha Custis, George Washington did not have any biological children of his own. However, he became a stepfather to Martha's 2 children, John Parke Custis and Martha Parke Custis, whom he raised as his own. George Washington's leadership and actions as the first president of the United States established many precedents that shaped the office of the presidency. His decisions regarding executive power, relations with Congress, and interactions with the public set important standards for future presidents to follow. Washington had a deep passion for agriculture and considered himself first and foremost a farmer. Throughout his life, he experimented with different crops, crop rotation methods, and agricultural techniques to improve the productivity and sustainability of his plantation at Mount Vernon. George Washington's estate, Mount Vernon, was not only his home but also a thriving plantation. It spanned over 8,000 acres and included farms, orchards, and gardens. Washington experimented with crop rotation and agricultural techniques to improve productivity. Throughout his lifetime, George Washington expanded and renovated his Mount Vernon estate, turning it into a showpiece of colonial American architecture and landscaping. He added various wings to the mansion, including the iconic piazza, and designed elaborate gardens and pathways. In his early years, Washington was heavily involved in the cultivation of tobacco, which was a lucrative cash crop in colonial Virginia. However, he eventually transitioned away from tobacco farming due to declining soil fertility and the economic challenges associated with the crop. In a significant act of humility and commitment to civilian rule, George Washington resigned his commission as Commander-in-Chief of the Continental Army in 1783, following the end of the Revolutionary War. His voluntary relinquishment of power established an important precedent for civilian control of the military. The famous story about young George Washington confessing to chopping down a cherry tree and uttering the phrase, "I cannot tell a lie," is likely apocryphal. The tale was invented by biographer Parson Weems in the early 19th century to illustrate Washington's honesty and integrity. "I think I will still decide to believe it's true." In 1791, George Washington laid the cornerstone of what would become the nation's capital, Washington, D.C. The ceremony took place at Jones Point in Virginia, and a boundary stone marking the southwest corner of the District of Columbia still stands at the site today. George Washington's death in 1799 has been attributed in part to the medical treatment he received, which included bloodletting, a common practice at the time. Washington fell ill with a severe throat infection and was subjected to bloodletting, which may have hastened his demise. George Washington passed away in 1799, while the first dinosaur fossil was unearthed in 1824. Consequently, George Washington lived and died without any knowledge of the existence of dinosaurs. So he just ate regular nuggets. Throughout his presidency, George Washington established many enduring precedents, including the title Mr. President, the 2-term limit, which was followed until Franklin D. Roosevelt's presidency, and the practice of delivering an inaugural address. George Washington had various interactions with Native American tribes throughout his life, both as a military officer and as a land surveyor. He participated in diplomatic negotiations with Native American leaders and recognized the importance of maintaining peaceful relations with indigenous peoples. George Washington played a significant role in the selection and adoption of patriotic symbols for the new United States, including the national flag and the Great Seal. He provided input on the design of these symbols, which incorporated elements representing American values and aspirations. In his last will and testament, George Washington expressed his desire to see his enslaved workers freed upon the death of his wife, Martha. While Washington personally owned slaves throughout his life, he acknowledged the moral and ethical complexities of slavery and took steps towards its eventual abolition. One of George Washington's most significant military victories occurred at the Siege of Yorktown in 1781, where British General Cornwallis surrendered, effectively ending major combat operations in the Revolutionary War. Washington's leadership and strategic coordination with French forces were instrumental in securing this decisive victory. The Washington Monument in Washington, D.C., stands as a towering tribute to George Washington's legacy as a founding father and the first president of the United States. The monument, completed in 1885, is the tallest stone structure in the world and a prominent symbol of American democracy. George Washington's presidency set the tone for the fledgling United States, emphasizing principles such as national unity, neutrality in foreign affairs, and the importance of the rule of law. His leadership during the nation's formative years helped to shape the institutions and values that define the United States today. George Washington's legacy as a founding father, military leader, and statesman continues to be celebrated and honored in the United States. His leadership during times of crisis and his commitment to principles such as liberty, unity, and civic duty have left an indelible mark on the United States' history and culture. Wow! Did you know that? I'm gonna start taking better care of my teeth. And did you know that you can subscribe to us? We have fun, random, and interesting facts about everything. See you!